We're live. That's New York Vinnie. He's in Seattle, and he's
And on
driving.
Friday,
He's
I,
driving down Highway 61.
yes, I just realized that I'm wearing the same shirt today that I was wearing on Friday, but I did wash it in between, so I
Yeah.
guess that's okay. And
It,
it's radio anyway, and nothing stinks on radio.
it
How are
looks.
you in Pasadena this morning, Michael Knight?
We have a cloudy day, so all of Los Angeles County is within a panic. We don't know where the sun went, and the sun's coming out. Never mind. Cancel the
Uh,
panic.
well, see, we never have that problem here because once October 1st hits, anytime you see the sun, it's a bonus. It's a gray. It's surprisingly like that color that you love so much on cars.
That's gunmetal gray,
That that
high
that
gloss.
muted gray, battleship gray, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Um, it's like that today, was like that yesterday, and appears that it might be like that all week. It's not cold enough yet to be cold, but it's
But it's
cool
too cold
enough.
to be warm.
If you wait till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this afternoon, maybe it'll get a little warmer. Right now, there's a chill in the air, which is normal for fall, right? I mean, we are in fall, and it's there's a pall. There's like kind of a weirdness, I think, today about many things. I
Well,
was talking,
how could there not be?
yeah, it's
Uh,
just maybe it's all catching up.
And by the way, this is how many days in a row that we have been told that the Rafah gate is going to open between Gaza and the Sinai. And did it open?
No, it hasn't, and I've
So I just want to say that it will, okay?
yeah, well,
For all the people, for
enough
all the
people
people, if
knock
you're
it down.
if you're waiting for it to open, I'm saying don't worry about a thing. It's going to open today,
Yeah,
and it'll probably be open tomorrow too.
I wouldn't be holding my breath for that thing to open. It is. Um, I guess they opened it on Saturday, right? For a little while.
For 20 trucks, yeah.
Yeah, let 20 trucks in, which is I mean, let's face it. Um, there's 20 trucks worth of aid for 2 million people should
That's
probably
just,
be about right, right?
that'll hold them.
That's at least a cracker for everybody.
And a Cracker Barrel for some lucky merchant.
Right. As a matter of fact, so what they actually have there is they have gift cards for your local Cracker Barrel. They're handing them out to people. Here,
That
if you
is
get
so
to
cool.
America, use this. Get
We should
yourself a
send.
big.
That's what we should send. Have you seen the commercials where they say we need $45 right now?
Yeah,
I'll just send them a $45 gift certificate to Target. That would be
exactly.
my answer. That takes care of everything.
Where is that? There's a couple of those appeals that are always. I mean, they're not funny in the sense of being funny, but they are the way they do the commercials. Are exploitive at one time
Time is running out. Time is
and
literally running out. Send me
right
$45.
and cheap. Cheap at the other end as well, because I guess with all the money they're raking in, they're not using professional cinematographers. They're using some guy with an iPhone, and he's
Exactly.
shooting
That's the
a
look. That's the
commercial,
look they're looking for.
and he's shooting a shot there. And anyway, yes, they need help. Although I've been kind of following along with. You're familiar with Ilan Omar, one
Mhm.
of the members of the squad,
Yes, she
and
was on.
from
She was on yesterday.
yeah. So she is involved in an imbroglio with Congressman Richie Torres from the
Are
Bronx.
they mud wrestling?
Well, in a way, they're definitely getting down in the dirt. And I have to say that I have, I'm not a big whataboutism kind of guy, but in this case, I really got to come down with Torres on his side. The argument is that the Israeli government, the world, the community, is everybody hates the Palestinians. Everybody hates
Uh,
the people in Gaza. Everybody hates, nobody wants to open the gate. Nobody wants to do this. First of all, it's the Arabs that don't want to open the gate. It's the Egyptians that don't want to open the gate.
they've opened that gate before and it didn't work out for them.
Right, right. So that's my number one problem. You shouldn't be pissed off at Richie Torres, and you shouldn't be pissed off at the world. Maybe what you ought to be is pissed off at the fact that 2 weeks ago, a bunch of your nitwits went over the fences and attacked a music festival. And listen, I know it runs deeper than that, but it is starting to wear on me a little bit. The whole, well, we have to have sympathy and we have to have understanding for the people that butchered little babies. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm never going to have understanding for the people that sent 6 million Jews to their death.
No, that wasn't the Palestinians who did that.
No, I'm saying, I'm never gonna excuse or say that that you're supposed to feel sorry for them, the Germans in World War II, that you're supposed to feel bad for them, that you're supposed to, that this, that, or the other thing, and I'm finding it increasingly hard to muster sympathy when the countries that should be where are these Arab countries to help these people out?
They're meeting in Cairo and having tea.
Yeah, they've been doing that for 2 weeks. Where were they to tell them maybe you shouldn't do this? Maybe you're going to create a situation if you go over that fence and start slaughtering people that's going to bring suffering like you've never seen it before. Even before the Israelis mount an all-out assault on you. That just maybe this isn't a bad idea. This isn't a good idea.
Well, is there going to be a ceasefire to allow negotiations to go on, which is what we believe? Or is Israel just going to say, no ceasefire, we're going to do this on our own? Thanks for your support. It's been wonderful to have all your support. Right now, we're going to take the lead, and we're not listening to our allies. We're not listening to our friends. We're not listening to the people that we're going to have to turn to if this gets dirty to defend us and make sure that Tel Aviv doesn't get bombed into so it looks like Gaza City. All those eventualities are in the offing. The only thing that can stop it is the U.S. presence. And so if that's the case, you have to take advice from us. And our advice is don't invade. Let's get the hostages out. Let's do switching. Let's do negotiation. Let's do diplomacy. And we'll tell you when. Right now, Israel is saying, wait a minute. You're doing all the hard lifting. You're paying for the fight. You have your Navy in the Mediterranean Sea. Why don't you let us tell you what to do? Why don't you let us run the show? Why don't you let us take the lead? We'll tell you when we need your help. You take care of Iran. You take care of Hezbollah. We'll bomb people who don't have an army. And when we're done, we'll let you know. So there's a disconnect between what needs to be done and who's in charge. And apparently, if you listen to Richard Engel from NBC News, who's one of the best foreign reporters ever, he said there is a difference of opinion between the army and the government of Israel as how to proceed. And it doesn't matter which one's right and which one's wrong, or which one's more militant or which one's more peace-loving. You can't have a disconnect between the army and the government in a time of war. And why, before we even get started, is there a disconnect between the army and the government? We haven't taken a step yet. We haven't even begun. We got 2 hostages back and a lot of work to do. So where did this idea that the army can do it at once and the government will just catch up, which is a move that is, if it's true, and I trust Richard Engel, separates all the advice that we've been giving Israel from the people who've been giving it. And that puts us into the mud with them.
Right. Exactly. And we're going to wind up in a in a mud like we've never seen before, a very
or,
different mud.
or just like we've seen before.
No, because I think we're going to be more deeply involved this time. I mean, I don't see any way, and I'm, we're not experts at this, but it's becoming increasingly more difficult for me to see a way out of this that doesn't involve American bodies on the ground in the combat zones, getting shot at, the whole soup to nuts.
I wonder what combat zone that'll be. Would it be at the Israeli border? Would it be in Iran? Would it be in Lebanon? Would it be in Egypt? Would it be in Jordan? Would it be in Syria? Or would it be a little bit of all those? And if we're so easily led into fighting a ground war in the Middle East, which everyone on the planet knows is madness, it can never be settled. There is no military solution. We've tried it for 5,000 years. We still haven't figured it out. Armies facing armies, but won't put one boot on the ground to help the Ukrainians.
Yeah, you bring up a great point.
Oh, Middle East? Yeah, we're in.
Yeah,
Why
we're
didn't you
in.
say? Why didn't you say you wanted a war? That's the greatest place to have one. That's the spot
Yeah,
where
you
we
got all
always
these
love to have them.
fields and
Oh yeah,
deserts and tunnels, and it's like a
and
a
don't
movie,
forget the
like a video game.
don't forget the prophets. Ezekiel's still out there, and Muhammad is
Yes,
still out there. You know, they're getting messages directly from the war gods. They're there to
just,
help.
but I guess in my mind, after I watched this and watched some of the shows over the weekend and everything like that, I, you know, I it, watching the Democrats turn on the Democrats is not a pretty thing. And I just think that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that if these people didn't go over the fence and start slaughtering people, we wouldn't be sitting in this particular position. Not to say that the situation wouldn't be, um, thinking this is horrible to say, but even if they would have gone over the fence, grabbed 200 people, and took them back over to the other side and not killed anybody or not slaughtered anybody, not hurt anybody.
Apparently, they had a manual with them on how to.
Oh, it seems like their intelligence is better than ours. If you just had done that, they say, okay, we now have a situation very similar to 1979 in Tehran. And we have hostages. The hostages are okay. They're being fed. Yeah, we're parading them through the streets, but this is what we want. This is what we need to have. And then you'd have a different situation. We're not slaughtering people.
Well, remember who did get slaughtered in the response to that was the helicopter black ops
Right.
that went over there to do what? Because all they did was crash into each other and kill each other, and the rest of them got captured. It was the most useless operation ever. It was an embarrassment to the nation. It was embarrassment to the army. It was embarrassment to the black ops. And I haven't forgotten it because I'd like to know what sort of training those guys had. Remember when you take off in these helicopters, there's another helicopter next to you. Oh, was that
Right.
what that was? Did you hear that noise?
Didn't seem like we were well prepared. But then the flip side of that coin is I would have to say that our knowledge and our ability and our operations are probably in a much better place today than they were back then. I mean,
It couldn't be any worse.
we went in and we've killed the head of I forget which Iranian general that we got in the middle of the Trump administration. We got Osama bin Laden. I think we've perfected our, or not perfected, nothing's ever perfect, but at least we've come to a better understanding of how you fight these things. Not, it's not like you send in a brigade and they come over the hill and on the horses and you go and you rescue people. It doesn't work like that. In 1979, it seemed to me that that's what we thought was going to happen. Is we were going to send America in, and then they were going to curdle up in their corners and let America go through and get the hostages back and take off. And
We didn't even get to town.
yeah, I mean, well, we're lucky. we're lucky scores more people weren't killed.
You know, when the night they killed Osama bin Laden, they landed helicopters in the courtyard, and one of them crash landed when he came in. They had to take everybody out in one helicopter because and all the equipment and all the computers and all the books and all the evidence because the black ops special artists crashed another helicopter. Not landed it, just crashed it into the courtyard.
Yeah, well, I think that you I mean, listen, I've never been in warfare, so I'm not going to sit there and say that. Well, it should be pretty easy just to land a helicopter right here. I can't imagine how hard that must be to first of all pinpoint somebody, and then to find them and get them without getting your entire crew blown off the face of the earth. But it seems to me that part of an operation would be carried out better today than it was back in 1979. And that we would be able to at least maneuver. But that's not what they chose. They chose to come up with a position and do something that is pretty much close to being unforgivable.
Yeah.
They didn't try to say, well, we're going to make a point by taking these people, holding them for a while, and then when we when we negotiate somehow, we'll let them go and they'll go back to their families, and that's it.
Well, Vinny, we're dealing with somebody who's saying what we need to do is have our revenge before we get the hostages.
Right.
The hostages are going to be fine. Don't worry about the hostages. They're well fed. They're taken care of. They're in the Hilton. But our revenge is important to our reelection and to our feeling about ourselves and the disconnect between the government and the army. So understand our position. Revenge first, hostages second. I'm thinking it's all going to work out. I can't see anything wrong with that plan. But remember, revenge must be first.
Well, I think what has to be first is trying to figure out a way to get. I mean, you're not going to have. I don't think there's ever going to be peace there. These people are going to be fighting each other for thousands more years coming. So it's not going to, until somebody, winds up getting a powerful enough weapon that they'll blow everybody off the face of the earth. I mean, it's starting to barrel toward that, as we can see.
But this idea that the Israelis hold that they can somehow even it up by just eliminating Hamas, what they're doing is ensuring that Hamas will be there for generations to come.
Well, that's it. You have how many of these young Arabs that are in Palestine and in places where we see them now marching out in the street? How many of them are in their teens and in their 20s? They've never known a life without rockets coming over their head, or
half of the population is under 19.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say to people that have experienced that, hey, be patient. Everybody's got a grandmother, an uncle, a father, a son, a daughter, or somebody that's been killed.
And you can't have it both ways if you're Israel. You can't say, we've got this. By the way, we're in charge, but we need your help. We need your money. We need your planes. We need your equipment. We need your bombs. We need your rockets. We need your help. We need your influence. But just keep in mind, we're running the show.
Well, and we're lucky. And I said this last week, and I think I'm pretty much, I remember you agreed with me on this, and I think that we both feel the same. Thank God that we have who we have in the White House.
Because Netanyahu is not a man of peace, never has been, never will be.
That thank God. And listen, it would be hard for me to be a man of peace if my next door neighbor came over the fence and slaughtered my family. That would be tough for me to be a man of peace as well. That would harden me up. That would make me see things in a much different perspective. That would make me see things as it's us, it's the few of us against all of them, and we're surrounded. And if we don't fight, if we don't project that we're badasses, that we're going to get stepped on. So it's hard for me to have this. I feel bad for this, that, or the other person. What I do feel bad for is the people that lose that are living there and trying to just live, trying to go out and drive a cab in the morning or go to a store or live their lives in this unfortunate situation that they've been put into just by the fact of being born there.
It's the perfect hell because you can't negotiate your way out of it. You can't solve it. You can't put an end to it.
You're
It
helpless.
is it's forever. It's forever and a day.
You were born into it, and chances are you're going to die in it.
I should say let them go at it, but no weapons. It's hand to hand.
Well, I always
Let's see what you got.
back in the late 70s. You remember a guy named Idi Amin Dada?
He
Edie
he
was a jovial fellow.
he'd be a pulling guard if the Raiders were still in Oakland.
Yes. Um, and I got to say that the one thing that I respected Idi Amin for, and he was a horrible person, a horrible ruler, but he had the idea that we shouldn't send our troops to war, that I will get in the boxing ring with the leader of whatever country it was they were at war with at the time, and we will fight it out. And the winner wins the war. You don't need to have all of these people destroyed. Just put you and me in the boxing ring.
So Edie was a big man. Who
Quite a
did he
lot.
propose that he was gonna fight?
But I have to say that out of all of the ideas of war that I've ever read up on or read about or studied or said, wow, well, why is this war happening? What's the tactic? What's the what's the desired end result so that we can get back to peace? That's the one that made the most sense for me. Don't kill all your young people. Don't kill, come on, generals. Don't kill all of you guys take off your jackets and your stars and bars and you get in the ring and fight this dude.
That concept is even more ridiculous among the Palestinians. The leaders of the Palestinians don't live in Palestine. They're not in the Gaza Strip. They're not on the West Bank. They're not in the country at all. They live in Qatar. They have a nice apartment down there where the government of Qatar interfaces with the rest of the world on behalf of the Palestinians. You want to speak to the Palestinians, you go to Qatar. You talk to the Qatar representative, who talks to the Palestinians, who talks back to the Qatar representative, who then gives you an answer. That's how these negotiations are going on. But do you think that those leaders, the men, the architects of these atrocities, are suffering on the Strip? They're not. They're not even there. They're down having tea and ordering scones from the kitchen.
They're set up with their hookah and they're smoking it and they're looking at out the window and it videotapes of what's going on and they're sending orders to people that are groveling in tunnels.
And they're going to open the Rafah gate.
And the people that are in the tunnels are looking at them as the way out to salvation, the way to be free, the way to make everybody believe that God or Allah or whatever you want to call whoever they're praying to is going to come to them through these guys that are living on the 99th floor of that apartment building in Abu Dhabi.
So God is great, as I understand it. Is that right? God is great.
That's what they say every day. But if God was that great, why is he letting all of this go on?
He could stop it. He is omniscient and all powerful, all seeing and all knowing. But he's busy. He's busy as he can be. He's got
a Niner game to go to tonight, doesn't he?
He's got AI angels working on his behalf throughout the universe. Don't you worry about God. He's doing fine. He's also in Qatar. Got a nice apartment.
it gets to a point where you look and you see and you follow it along, and you have to walk away from watching it because they show the same clips of the same baby being carried to the same ambulance,
Right.
the same and now the new thing is they have the nerve to say, what we're going to show you is going to be disturbing.
Is graphic.
It's graphic. It's disturbing. Maybe you shouldn't look, but if you go away, we're only going to show it to you again.
Yeah, we'll show it to you again. Here's the children with their names written on their legs again and again. And I saw it 3 times just yesterday, and I already seen it once this morning.
Yeah, it's they're exploiting the situation for whatever they can, and a gazillion different entities are trying to make their voice known. Any clown who's ever had an opinion has been on either MSNBC or CNN or Fox, or I mean, you name it, and that they're inter. I mean, I don't know where to get these people. Is there like a place that you go and you call up and you say, "I need 3 experts"?
NBC had one on that was telling me that Chesborough and Sidney Powell had pulled one over on the court. They had agreed to testify, but they're not really going to have to. They said they would tell the truth, but they don't really have to. They might testify against Trump, but under the right circumstances, they don't have to. And I was going, what legal expert is this? We just saw the court proceedings. We just saw them plead guilty. We just saw them say that they would. They signed the agreement. Now their lawyer went out front and said, "We're not squealing on anybody. We're not telling the truth." That, well, a lawyer can say what he wants. He's an officer of the court.
Right.
But they were also told never to speak to the public, to the press, or to other defendants about their decisions of the court, or what lay ahead of them, or what testimony that they had agreed to give. Now, all that is agreed to. And here comes an expert that says, very narrow pleading. The court really dropped the ball on this one. That Sidney Powell and Chesborough may never actually testify truthfully. And I'm going to myself, where'd they get this person to come up with an opinion that flies in the face of everything we've heard for the last 3 days? And yet there it was, smiling, happy, informative, and full of half-truths and nonsense that was broadcast as news. And I just wondered, why did they go to the trouble?
Right. Exactly. They're just, one of the things that when and we had a couple of really good producers. The best was a guy named John Hunter that was our producer for a long time.
I don't
Uh,
remember him.
you don't remember him? He was a tall guy. Used to stand in front of the Coug and pee on the ice so it would turn to ice. Anyway,
That I
John
remember.
Hunter
Now
had
I
a
don't
knack
remember him.
finding people who actually knew what they were talking about
Well,
and figuring out how to incorporate them into our show. I look at the people that they booked today, and I know it must be a hard job because where do you think there's only so many experts to go around? Luckily, they don't have a non-compete agreement where one expert can't go on MSNBC and then not go on CNN. But it seems like if you are a news junkie, if you are a person that watches the news like I tend to do, 20 hours a day and your brain is fried, you wind up hearing opinions and seeing opinions and saying, what does this guy know that I don't? He's basically reading the front page of the New York Times while he's sitting there and telling you what's on the page, what's on the front
Here,
page. There's no opinion, there's no expertise. It's just an opinion.
I can't tell you what I think, but I can tell you what other people think.
I find it shocking, and this is what's passed off to us as news,
Content.
because we are so desperate to find somebody who will agree with what we think. So if we're right wingers, we were going to go to Fox or Newsmax, and those people, their producers, are going to find people that basically echo what the host thinks.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
If you're an MSN, if you're a lefty and you're an MSNBC person, their producers are going to go find people who think like the host thinks, because the last thing you want is somebody on the air that's smarter than the host, that appears to be smarter than the host.
It's getting to be just about 11 o'clock. I wanted to mention the passing of a great disc jockey and person of influence, and that's
Yes.
Dusty Street. Dusty Street began her career with Tom Donahue at KMPX. When the disc jockeys first went on what was going to be called freeform radio or underground radio or alternative FM radio, one of the things that Donahue wanted to do was break the disc jockeys of all their old habits that they had learned on AM radio. He took the clocks out of the studio, and he had male disc jockeys with female engineers. He thought it would change their delivery and their interaction with the audience if they had a female engineer, which was unheard of. Female engineers were not the norm within radio. And the engineer played the spots, and the engineer played the records. This jockey only spoke and made musical decisions. And she started that way as an engineer, but she went on to become a disc jockey at KMPX, and then for many years at KSAN. For many years, she was at KTM for a while. She was at KROQ in Los Angeles. She was at Sirius Broadcasting out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland for years. And then health got the best of her, and she moved to Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if she was doing radio there, and died yesterday at the age of 77. But a groundbreaking disc jockey that happened to be female, with great taste, with a lot of personality, with extraordinary history and experience. And we're going to miss Dusty Street. Fly low and avoid the radar, she would say.
Yes, I didn't know her personally. I met her twice at. I met her once at the Gavin convention. Oddly enough, which was a convention that used to happen in San Francisco, and it was basically a 3-day falderall for record companies to
Bacchanal.
Yes, to Bacchanal. You could you'd be standing there next to Bill Graham, scarfing down as many shrimp as you could. It was a wonderful time, and you go home with a big goodie bag of more records than you possibly could carry, more CDs, which were new at the time that you could possibly carry, more blow than you could possibly blow, and more food. I remember that some struggling. I mean, everybody thinks of DJs as people that have a lot of money and this and that the other thing, but it's a few people make a lot of money, a lot of people make a few pieces of change.
The guys making all the money weren't there anyway.
Right, they were in a private room somewhere, and I remember always seeing people like from KUSF who were people that were living in the dorms, but the station was bigger than it was because
Influential.
it was the number one college station in the country. And people on the staff at KUSF would show up with plastic bags, stuff the shrimp and the cornbread, whatever you could into the plastic bag. But I met her twice at the Gavin, both times in passing in a hallway, and I knew the name. And sometimes you have to keep your Dusties straight because there's a lot of Dusties. There's Dusty Roads, there's Dusty Street, there's Dusty Avenue. There's
Dusty Baker.
Dusty Baker. There are a number of teams. Listen to me. Of DJs that copy. How many Bobby Oceans are there in the world?
One.
Well, there's one real Bobby Ocean, but there's a whole lot of people who've imitated that name, or Bobby
Really?
Wills,
The
or
cowards.
yeah,
Cowards.
and so it was just a short, "Hey, how are you? I work here in town. I've heard you and heard of you, and you're very cool, and you know, I appreciate listening to you. I think I learned something when I've heard a couple of your tapes." And she was like, "Oh, well, nice, good luck," and moving down the hall. So I didn't really have an intimate knowledge of her, but people that I know that know her. She's one of those people who was one of the rare people that nobody had a bad word to say about. And I don't know if
I
that's
think
true or
that's
not.
fair.
I didn't
No,
work with her, so I don't know, but I do know that when you run across that in this business, that it really means something because almost everybody has a bad word to say about everybody. So God rest her soul, and um, to the people who, those were the days, Mikey, when DJs turned people on to music.
it's true.
Um, they there was a Tuesdays, which was music days, when things really got boiled up, as you well know. There was an anticipation for what the DJ was, who was going to get to play what record first. And it was one of the things as a kid who worked in a record store growing up, um, that was the allure of
Breaking a record.
breaking a record, being able to, when I worked in a record store on Tuesdays, the day the records would come in, and you'd grab the new White Album and you'd run home after work and you call up a couple of your friends and you'd slap it on the turntable. Come on over and listen to this. Come over and listen to this guy named Paul Butterfield. You don't know him, but listen to this. It's going to be something different than you've ever heard before. Um, and that was the allure to me of radio, was to be able to do that. And she did that, as did many people in that era of radio, when you had the freedom to do things like that. If you heard a great record, you could bring it in with you and play it, and a program director wasn't going to call you up and say, "Get that off," unless it really.
Program directors in those days on the FM stations were facilitators to give everybody the tools they needed to have a great show. Now they are subtractors, taking away this, taking away that, taking away this break, taking away this promotion, taking away this idea, taking away anything you might do that smacked of creativity. Snip, snip.
Right.
Less of that. We don't need that. That's why radio stinks.
So I hope that someday somebody gets smart enough in radio to go out and find the next 10 dusty streets. They got to be out there somewhere. And there has to be somebody out there who is willing to say, let's give these people a chance. Let's just give them a stack of records and a signal and a desk and a couple of turntables and a couple of tape players and a couple of Vox Pros, and let them go out there and just turn people on to music. That's we've said that a million times. That's what radio needs. Um, in my opinion, that's what radio needs. It needs to doesn't need to reinvent itself. It just needs to go back to do the things that it did so well. And Dusty Street, again, I don't work with her or anything, so I don't know her on a personal level. But what I heard of her, tapes that I've heard of her, and just her mannerisms, seemed that she was somebody who took pride in presenting music and giving people access to music that they may not have gotten, and they certainly don't get these days.
No,
And
it's
that's
a sad commentary on a corner of the media world that's shrinking, and in reaction to that shrinkage, no freedom, more constraints, hoping somehow if you just choke off the air to the patient that he's going to get better.
well, yeah. How many times did we, that you look you go back and you look at the, let's just say for the heck of it, the WABC 77 WABC playlist from July 10th, 1963. And you go up and down that playlist, and it's not one, and that was obviously a tightly controlled playlist. But in that control, there was great music, not just from one genre of rock and roll, but there was soul, there was instrumentals, there was pop, there was a variety of music in there.
True.
And when progressive came along, it really took that to another level. It said that you can play um, British blues, and you can play James Brown, and you can play 1910 Fruit Gum Company if there's a song that you think is worth listening to on that album.
1, 2, 3, red light.
Yeah, yeah, you could do that. And the one thing that you had to have to do that, though, was people that could pull it off, could
Sell it.
explain it to you,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was why the city was so unique, because it gave you time. It was one of the last stations that gave somebody who was sitting behind the microphone time to explain to people what they had just heard. It wasn't just listen to this and that's it. It gave someone like you, me, Dusty, Norman Davis. I mean, go down the list. Alan Burton. It gave people who love the music a chance to explain to you why they loved the music, why they thought it was good, and why they might have thought it was a piece of crap. And that's why radio was so good.
Donahue had a bit of advice for people who said, if you don't have a good new record to play a good old record. It's time to play music now. Make your choice carefully. Make your choice wisely. Make your choice be adventuresome, but pick the right cut. It's the new Stones album, Hackney Diamonds, is out. What cut are you going to play? Where are you going to start? What sort of image are you looking for? What energy level is it? You're going to pick a ballad, a country honk, or the rocker with McCartney? Which one are you going to play? It's important that you're playing it because it's a new Stones album. But now choose the cut. That's as important.
Am I one of the only people that are blown away by the fact that we have lived long enough to see the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on one record?
Well, this according to
Well, yeah,
according to Keith Richard, they said, "Poor Paul, we couldn't get him to leave. He just wanted to stay and play with us." And I think I understand that.
Yeah, I bet you that had to be, an unbelievable thing for them to, to make that happen. I just thought the idea of it, for those of us who lived through Tiger Beat magazine, DC5 versus the Beatles, and why John, Paul, George, and Ringo hate Mick and Keith and Brian, and I mean, and those the cartoon characters with the photographic heads
Yes.
on them, driving a jitney down, London or something like that. I mean, it was
Charlie Watts riding a camel.
right. There was always the attempt to set up the rivalry.
By the way, Charlie Watts is on this album. Not all the
Is,
cuts, but a couple.
is he?
Yes.
I'm just so I'm so enamored of this whole thing. Did you catch Mick Jagger on Saturday Night Live?
No.
Yes, he was on Saturday Night Live this week. Um,
With Bad Bunny.
with Bad Bunny, who I have to shamefully admit I don't know much about, but I enjoyed the show.
It was a name that he chose for himself. He didn't give it much second thought. He went with Bad Bunny, and that's all I can tell you.
Well, I guess I kind of thought that it was going to be kind of a Pitbull ripoff kind of deal,
Yeah.
And I was really, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at how. I mean, the opening sketch wasn't really a whole lot to write home about. I think they fell flat on their face on that one, but the interesting cameos by Lady Gaga and Mick Jagger kind of harkened back to almost that period in the 70s or 80s when if you were in New York on Saturday night and you were somebody,
You dropped
uh,
by.
you came by just to stick it, and they'll just let you stand there and introduce somebody or make a quick cameo appearance,
Promote that album.
promote that album. And it was, just like the week before, they had Britney Spears introduced. I can't remember her name, but
Good Bunny.
no, it wasn't Good Bunny. It was whoever it was, whoever the musical guest was.
Inattentive Bunny.
Yeah, an inattentive Bunny, Bunny on Ritalin. So anyway, it was good. You should, if you can go back and watch it. It was actually a pretty decent Saturday Night Live.
I have it recorded.
Yeah.
But tonight, I'm not going to have time because I have the 49ers.
Yes, you have the 49ers this week.
And I thought that Miami was going to beat the Eagles, and I was so terribly wrong.
I thought they were too. I was a little shocked, to be honest with you, that they didn't. But
Eagles were too tough.
that's why they play the game.
And as for the Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, that was not even a game.
The whole thing's kind of getting out of hand, though, isn't it? With this Kelsey and I mean, it's. Can we watch the game? Do we have to have 9,000 shots of
Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift? Thank you. I almost said Britney Spears, who made some news of herself last week. But it was a good weekend for football. Except if you were a Coug fan.
Well, the Cougs. Here's the deal: if you want to beat Oregon, you must be prepared to score more than 30 points.
Yeah.
Not if it's a good day, not any excuses. If you can't put up more than 30, you can't play with them.
And you can't make one thing that always kills the Cougs is they always seem to make the stupidest mistake at the most inopportune time. They have a skill at matching those two elements of the game up.
Whatever you do, don't mess it up now because too late.
Yep. Well, you should have told me that 10 minutes ago. Well, no, we shouldn't have to tell you that. That's something you should know.
You're a Coug. You know about Cougan.
Right. And you need to, not throw the ball into the middle of three people, because when you throw the ball into the middle of four people and only one of them has the same color uniform that you have on,
bad things happen.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
And the Huskies had a tough time. They emerged victoriously, and that's all that's going to matter. But it was not a straightforward victory for them in the characters that they've seen in previous games this year. They struggled a bit. The score doesn't reflect it, but it was too close for the Huskies.
Yeah, for a team that's in the national championship conversation, and listen, rightly so. Um, they struggled mightily, but you're going to have a stinker, right? I mean,
It was raining. That upset everybody. Nobody knew
yeah,
how to take that.
you're gonna. I mean, you're not going to play, perfect games every week. What I always look for now is how do you bounce back from a performance like that, and also it had to be interesting for them. I mean, I would have thought that they would have played a hell of a game coming off of that win against Oregon, which many people are saying is the college football game of the year.
Yeah, it was quite a game.
It was an unassailable great game that was played not just by the Huskies but by the Ducks as well. It's just that the Huskies, uh, I thought, um, just played a couple of plays better.
Yeah.
It wasn't a blah. It wasn't that they were a better team or anything like that. They just played a couple of, and I think that's where the coaching comes in, is that they stayed on the page as long as they needed to, and maybe the Ducks wandered a little bit.
Speaking of
Um,
wandering, how about the Wolverines of Michigan? They're doing everything they can. They've already had their coach suspended for the year. Now they're under a big investigation by the NCAA for stealing signs and cheating. They're turning out to be the Houston Astros of the Midwest, and they can't get out of their own way. They're number 2 in the nation, by the way,
yeah,
and they are. It's like the FBI has a special field office just to handle complaints about Michigan. It's an odd, disappointing series of events, and I can't believe that being number 2, just by being Midwest, by being Michigan, you get the vote of the coaches poll and the Associated Press poll. But do you think that team can beat the West Coast teams? Do you think that team can score 30 points or more when they have to go up against Oregon or Washington?
uh, I'm going to be very honest and say that I haven't watched them enough to be able to say that I think they could or they couldn't. Traditionally, you would think it would be a slam dunk, but the uh, the portal has changed college football to the degree where the team you had last year is not the team you have this year anymore.
And do you want to play in the West where it doesn't snow all that much, or do you want to play in Michigan where it snows
Well,
on every spring day?
that's the smart thing that the Pac 12, 10, 8
Two.
decided to do. They said we have this beautiful league that we play all up and down the Pacific coast. That's what the Pac means. Pacific coast, where yes, you get some rain and you get every once in a while you get some snow, but for the most part, it's a temperate climate. It's never really freezing
It gets a little
unless
cold
it's
in
like
Utah,
Wazoo.
but Utah came to USC and just about had a huge upset over the weekend.
And so let's take these teams and put them in conferences where they can freeze their asses off all the time
But
and
make
go back
money.
and play in snowballs. Yeah, screw the kids.
Screw the snow. Let's make some
Screw the
money on
snow.
TV. Let's make money
There's
on a
money in
TV
them
deal.
Matt Flakes,
Yeah.
as a friend of mine used to say. So
Well, the game tonight is going to be interesting because I'm seeing the 2 teams that are washing out as the best are the 49ers of the NFC, the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC, and nobody else can touch them. And you want to have a good game against Kansas City, you better score more than 35 or 40 points. You cannot take them apart without scoring 40 points.
yeah, you better come out and hit the gas and not look back.
And if 3 and out is your excuse for an offense, you're through.
Well, Do you see that as a problem with either one of those teams?
No. Well, the Niners had a bad game against, I can't remember who they lost to now. It
Was
was
that?
a situation where McCaffrey got hurt and Debo
Yeah,
Samuel got hurt,
and I
and,
think that was part of it, right? Is that McCaffrey was hurt? It kind of limited their
they
options.
didn't have another McCaffrey they could plug in. They had a couple more running backs, but not like that. Anyway,
Right.
he's playing tonight, and it's gonna be a good game against Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm interested in. I'm really interested in seeing it. I think it's. I really want to. I want to see the 49ers. Obviously,
You're gonna watch Troy Aikman tell us that, "Well, we talked about it." That's how he starts 20 sentences during every game.
yeah. He seems to want us to know that he was a football player at one time.
He's on auto, yeah, who got hit in the head too often. He's on autopilot. So I'll be watching if Eli and Peyton have their show tonight, I'll be watching that version.
Yeah, I might go over and watch them. By the way, nice win yesterday by the Steelers.
That was something,
Who,
wasn't it?
who sputtered and sputtered and just couldn't seem to get it together, but in true Pittsburgh fashion, toughed it out.
Did
And
you see the crowd?
oh yeah,
Incredible. Incredible amount of Steeler fans at
well
SoFi Stadium.
there is no team that travels, no team that attracts more of the other in road games. There's no team that there's just no team better than the Steelers when it comes to that stuff. When it comes to people being on the road, traveling with the team, also the extraordinary amount of people who have left Pittsburgh and now live in places like Florida and Southern California. Good God, you go to a Steeler game in Florida, man, and it's a freaking home game.
It's something to see. And they expect it everywhere they go. They expect
Yeah,
those Stiller fans to show up.
yeah, it's not abnormal for them. They expect to walk out there and see whatever stadium that they're in, wrapped in black and gold,
Standing on their feet, terrible towels going, screaming at the top of their lungs, and the Steelers responded.
and they travel. I mean, from it's not just people that happen to live, like let's say in Southern California, and they wind up going to the game. I mean, they get on planes in Pittsburgh and they fly. I mean, you go one of the great sports phenomena that you will see is go to Pittsburgh International Airport on a Friday night.
The town is leaving to follow the team.
The place is just jammed with Steeler fans getting on planes to wherever they're going, or consequently take the Pennsylvania Turnpike toward either New York
Cleveland,
or Cleveland's forget about it. Cleveland's like crazy.
Balmer,
But New York, Washington, any drivable city.
Jacksonville's drivable if you leave early.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And you'll see people camp. People with Steeler painted cars and tents and stuff like that, sleeping in the rest stops.
You say tents or tanks?
Tents. Although something tells me that there's somebody with a Steeler tank somewhere. I could almost guarantee you there's some guy that bought a half track and
Or a Hummer and modified it.
yeah, has painted it orange and gold. Just to illustrate what I was saying, Mikey, I'm looking at the front page of the homepage of the NFL.com, and I'm looking at the news items that are here and takeaways from each Sunday game. Browns quarterback day to day, Jets cornerback in protocol. Allen lost to the Giants. And then there's three stories sitting here about Swift and Kelsey. So she has invaded the NFL, and I'm sure that they are happy about it. I mean, what better combination could you have than to have America's number one pop star? I mean, it's Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe
Yeah.
all over again, isn't it?
And she comes to, I mean, it's not like she's went to one game. She's there every week.
Yeah, she's hanging out with Mama Kelsey. I mean, it's actually kind of a cute story. Really, when I mean, to see. Listen, we all need a love story these days.
It couldn't hurt.
With the way the world is going, if you can't have a love story of your own, you may as well have one. You know that you can live vicariously through. Did you catch any baseball this weekend?
I saw the game last night, especially at the end of the game. It turned out the way I wanted. As interesting a player as Altuve is, I got to see him lose when he didn't want to. I got to see him play hard. I got to see Dusty defend hitting the guy's sand. Anybody who knows baseball knows that wasn't intentional. Well, anybody who knows baseball knows it probably was intentional.
Dusty's a card, man. We've talked about this a couple of weeks ago that that Dusty has no problem telling one of his pitchers to go after somebody.
It had to be done. Dodgers.
These are two guys that play old school baseball.
You would have loved the LA Times sports section this Sunday. It was a expose of the Dodgers. Here's the mistakes they've made. Here's the guys who made the mistakes. Here's the decisions they were made. Here's the money they spent. Here's how they brought in Bauer, who beat up women. Here's how they brought in Urias, who beat up women. Here's how they brought in these players that were supposed to perform who didn't. Here's the young guys that were cheap that they acquired, that they used in starting roles that were vital to the team, but were never paid properly. The LA Times took a look at the Dodgers and said, maybe they can win 100 games every year, but they can't win. There's something about this team that doesn't win. There's something about this team that can't control its destiny. They can't move on when they have to. There's something about this team that's wrong. Something stinks. What's wrong with this management? What's wrong with the decisions they make? So for a team that went to the playoffs, they were described just as disparagingly as I described my Giants, who went nowhere near the playoffs. Couldn't get a ticket to the playoffs.
Kind of like the Sonics.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Sonics. I mean, you have teams that are equipped that should. You look at it, you should say that team should go all the way.
Should go somewhere.
Should go somewhere. And yet, out of a period of 7 years, that they were, from 92 to when they knocked off Golden State until 2000. They put together a pretty damn good team every year, and yet couldn't get arrested in the playoffs except for 96.
Those teams were never made for the playoffs. They were made to win a number of games in the regular season, get to the playoffs, and then be completely ill-equipped to face the top teams in the league.
Yeah. There was always something that that got in the way.
Something they had that we didn't have.
Yeah, and it was a lot of self-destruct. It was a lot of there was a lot of self-destruct going on. You had the Kendall Gill situation, that was nuts. Then you had the McIlvain thing that split the team up. You had Sean and his
drinking
stuff that was going on, and Gary and his and when older veterans came in, they saw that and they were like, "Get me out of here." And they would bring in a Patrick Ewing, or they would bring in, Vin Baker should have gotten them over the top. but he was the head case, man.
Yeah.
Should have gotten them. Should have helped them get to the promised land.
It's like head cases in any sport that end up going to a second division team that says, we didn't know. How are we supposed to know? Everybody else in the league knew. Why do you think he's playing for you? Because everybody knew that he was an idiot and you didn't. That's why he's on your team, because you're an idiot.
Well, is it that, Michael, or is it there's always a coach
I'll turn
that
him around. I'll bring him in.
we can fix him?
Yeah.
I can fix him. I know how to get to him.
John Matuszak with the Raiders had 2 watchers, not 1, 2, to keep him in line, and
I
they
know
couldn't
how to
keep up with
straighten
him.
him out. I can make him the player that he's supposed to be. I can do this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do my greatest coaching job in the world. And Sean Kemp is going to win a championship, and Gary Payton's going to get along with everybody, and right on down the line. And it rarely works, does it?
No.
Every once in a while, but for the most part, yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Who
Doesn't
you
do
think
okay.
the Phillies and the Rangers?
Yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it? Looks like it. You gotta love Bosch.
You
I
gotta.
mean, he's gone down there and done a spectacular job managing that team. What a stiff Max Scherzer's turning out to be for them, though. Although I'm going to say that he has been injured,
Yeah,
so
he didn't have a good year.
it's hard to, it's hard to judge him on that. But boy, he had a case. He would have fit well on the Mariners when they needed him. Disappeared, nowhere to be found. Played great baseball in August, in September. Where are you?
Where is Max? Has anybody seen him? Is he on our team?
But
I like the way Texas did it in terms of power. They just walked in there and hit a bunch of home runs.
they're just a free swinging team, man. Um, you know, but they also, they hit home runs, but they also do the little things. They play good, sound, fundamental defense. They play fundamental baseball.
And it's tough to pitch in against the Houston team when all the marbles are in play and shut them down and cut off the bases are loaded, but they don't score. They got 2 men on, but they can't bring them in. It looks good, but it ain't good. That's not easy. In that time of year, when the arms are tired,
Yeah.
it's difficult. It's
It's
difficult
it's
to pull that off.
surprisingly similar to what we see out of the Mariners. How many times did we see the Mariners have bases loaded, nobody out, and not score a run? Or bases loaded, nobody out, they're 3 runs behind and they score 1.
On a fly ball.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But the Rangers seem to have a good knack of just getting key hits at the right time, hitting to the side of the field where they can, you know, make something happen as opposed to hitting into a double play. And the Phillies again are I'll say it again. I've said it all since last year. The Phillies are the team that you want your team to be.
Here's something that Kristen told me yesterday. The Giants have gotten permission from the San Diego Padres to talk
Yeah.
to Bob Melvin.
I was going to bring that up as our closing salvo. Um,
Because right now they're looking at Boshi and going, what did we do? You didn't do anything. You were a AAA team for 3 years since Boshi left. That's what you did.
I think it would be very cool for Bob Melvin to finish it up with the Giants, don't you?
He's got a lot of work to do if he comes.
Yeah, but I think he's grown on me as a manager. He's grown on me as a person, and to me, it would really be something special if he were able to take over the Giants and get them to a World Series one more time. And
Well, he's a good manager, but we need some horses. We're a little
right,
short of horses right now.
because I remember when he wasn't such a good manager. And I remember when he first started, he made a lot of mistakes, and and he's one of those people that you looked at and they blossomed like they learned on the job.
Like Boshi, he's a catcher.
Yeah, yeah. And I got nothing but mad respect for Bob Melvin, and would really love to see him. I mean, well, there's one other place that I'd rather see him go.
Well, they should get permission and talk to him too.
I'm sure they're gonna. I'm sure they're gonna. I don't know that it's as good. He could go there and he could manage them, and he might even win a World Series or get to a World Series with them. The Mets we're talking about. But there's a special story that would happen if it were the Giants.
Yeah.
If you're into fairy tales, if you're into the whole side of baseball that's the pumpkin the coach turns into a pumpkin at midnight, all of that kind of stuff.
We've had plenty of those guys.
Yeah, there's been a
Plenty
ton
of
of it.
those guys.
It's really a heartwarming and heart gripping story that Bob Melvin would go back to the Giants and lead them to the World Series and to a championship. It would be, um, to me at least, as a guy who has a very good spot in his heart for the Giants. It would be a storybook ending for his career.
Well, we don't have any results yet, but let's hope that wiser decisions are made than that have been made in the past.
I couldn't see any reason why they wouldn't make that move if all the numbers worked out and everything was equal and they could make it they didn't have to give up too much to get all of the factors that go into it. If you had the possibility of making that move, why would you not make that move?
That's a good point.
If you could do it, why wouldn't you do it? It would be, I think, an incredible homecoming, a great story. And right now in this world, Mikey,
We could
we
use
need
it a
a
little.
good
We could
story.
use an upper.
We can use a couple of good stories.
And until one presents itself in baseball, we'll have to take the 49ers tonight as our good story for the day.
We'll do that. We will take that and we will run with it. And if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, I guess I'll catch up with you here on Wednesday morning, Mikey.
It'll be a wacky Wednesday, and the open the Rafa gate and negotiate for the release of the hostages. That's what you do. And tell the guys who wants to shoot first and ask questions later, they'll get their shot, but
Yeah.
later.
You know what? Put Jim Jordan in a uniform. He's not doing much of anything these days.
Is it a short sleeve drip dry? The man has standards.
It'd be like putting Gomer Pyle into a.
You ever see an old shot of like the NASA headquarters during a flight in Houston? All the guys are wearing short sleeve white shirts with black ties.
Yep.
I'm just going, what shop? I mean, what shop by the freeway? It's got a big sign saying, "Get your short sleeve drip dries here."
It's this is Chris Kraft at Mission Control. Remember that guy? Chris Kraft was the guy who.
Yeah, he was the spokesperson, the voice of NASA,
and also made a hell of a boat too.
He did, and he looked fabulous in a short sleeve white shirt.
Those guys were working hard, man.
They knew how to get to the moon. There's nobody in Houston that knows that now.
Now we launch 2 rockets a day. I watched 2 launch. Was it Saturday? Yeah, Friday or Saturday. They launched 2 rockets on the same day.
Was it Elon Musk turning off the communication satellites over the Middle East?
Yeah, yeah.
He's like that. He's a very moody guy.
So weird dude, man. Weird dude. All right, I will catch up with you Wednesday morning, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Thank you. You cheered my day up. I was having a really crappy morning, and you know what, Mikey? You cheered my day up. So
Well,
thank
We got Dusty Street on the way out and Bob Melvin on the way in.
you. And where is Harold Melvin now that we need him?
I'll check with the Blue Notes. They're out loading the amps into the car.
Yeah, are they loading their own amps into the car? That's the question.
Yes, they're their amps now.
something tells me that they're loading Chuck Berry's amps into the back of their car.
One of them says 1910 Fruit Gum Company, return to sender.
Yes, return to sender. Well, in the words of the great Susan Cowsill,
Get me the hell out of here.
get me the hell out of here. See you on Wednesday.
All
Peace,
right.
love, Manischewitz, baby.
What a wine.
See you,
See you
Mikey.
then.